The late Martin Luther King, in his most famous speech, said, "I have a dream." And today, I'd like to tell you about my dream. I dream of creating a future without causing harm. Without causing harm. A future that we can all thrive and live in without the fear of harm. How does that sound? Is that what we want? Cause no harm. It's a cultural change process. It has to come from within. It's a movement, the hero's journey from the head to the heart. Cause no harm means it's not okay to cause a little bit of harm. It's not okay that we can hurt some people or destroy a little bit of rainforest or do a little bit of pollution or wage a little war here or a little terrorism here. That's not okay. Cause no harm is a new way of thinking. It's a paradigm shift that says it is unacceptable to cause harm. Unacceptable. Not a little bit. It's unacceptable to cause harm. So we have to change our mindset. We have to change in what we believe. Right? It's an awareness-making process, a cultural change process. The hero's journey. It is unacceptable for us to cause harm. And when we believe that, when we live that in every moment, that's when we will create a future that is habitable for every one of us and future generations. This is my dream. This is my passion. This is what gets me up in the morning and keeps me awake at night. This is what I want to share with you. When we were in the agrarian era, the agricultural era, we didn't cause that much harm. Yes, there was a little bit of farming that was done. We had to take a bit of rainforest out here and there. We grew some crops and stock. But generally, we didn't cause a lot of harm. Our population wasn't like it was today, like it is today. So generally, we didn't cause a lot of harm. It was about community. It was about living and surviving and working together in harmony. And we see this beautifully executed here in Bali. A sense of community that pervades this whole island, where farmers help farmers, builders help builders. This is what we need to return to, the traditional way, integrating the traditional way of life with our modern trappings. Then came this, the Industrial Revolution, and everything changed. Everything changed. We sent children into factories. We sent them down mines. The safety and health was detrimental to every worker. It split this community. Instead of being community-based, we sent our children off to work, and our husbands off to work, and our wives stayed at home. Right? It was the start of the fragmentation of our community. And the amount of accidents and harm that has been caused as a result of the Industrial Revolution is what we see today. What we see, the condition of the planet, the condition of fragmentation of human beings between each other, and the lack of connection between our sacred Mother Earth, our true Mother Earth. Take a look at this photograph. This was taken in 1923, building a New York skyscraper. These gentlemen are sitting having what would be called in Australia a smoko, where you take a break, have some food and a cigarette. Would you fancy being perched up on this girder? I don't think so. But believe it or not, this was acceptable behavior in 1923. And what's worse, that when you built one of these high-rise buildings, for every floor that was built, you would lose one life. Somebody would get killed for every floor. This was considered normal and acceptable in those days. This one is a 30-story building. So we can pretty well guarantee that 30 people lost their lives in the course of building this high-rise building in New York. Would we accept that today? Would we? Absolutely not. Think about this for a moment, though. In 70 years hence, as we grow our awareness and our consciousness, as we grow our community, as we change, as we decide not to cause harm, we will look back at 2011 and think, how could they behave that way? How could they wage war on each other? How could they be so separate from Mother Nature? How could they cause so much damage to the environment? We will look back at this era that we're experiencing today, that we are creating today, and think, this is ridiculous. And I hope I'm here, standing here in 70 years' time, saying, this is the same as this picture up here. So, in the 1970s and 80s, we started being a little bit more caring and realized we can't rape this planet of its resources. We can't keep harming people through the industry and at home. So we created what was called HSE, Health, Safety and Environment and Quality Procedures. We had manuals up the yin-yang. We had a manual for everything. Everything you did was followed by a procedure. Right? And it worked to some degree. We managed to reduce the losses. We managed to reduce how much harm was being done, both at home and in the workplace. Right? The only problem is that nobody could read these manuals. They were written rather esoterically from a technical point of view. But the auditors would come through to audit a company, and the people, the managers, would take these manuals off the shelf and go, blow the dust off them, leave them at the right page, and the auditor would be very impressed. ISO 9001 for you, OSS 18001 for you, and so on and so forth. But we were successful in reducing the losses, but then it plateaued out. Then we stopped being able to get any further. So clearly we had to move beyond just the procedures. And behavioral science came into its fore. We started studying human behavior in a very, very profound way. What is the human behavior behind this situation? What has led these people to take at-risk behaviors? Right? And then we modified the environment around us so that we could reduce the possibility of harm occurring. And we were successful. We managed to reduce this curve back down again. Down the losses, down the harm, the environmental degradation, the harm to each other, the harm to the equipment. We got to a plateau. We couldn't go any further. So a little bit about myself. For the last 23 years, I've worked at the senior management level in multinational companies, experiencing all of the trappings of being at a high-level position, wonderful travel, business class travel, hotels, nice salary package, and being directly involved in loss prevention, directly involved in seeing all this harm. And I've seen my fair share of debilitating occupational illnesses, deaths, and debilitating accidents. And it was one of them that really triggered for me. A very dear friend of mine lost his life. And within a few minutes, I went to the clinic to see this lifeless form on the bench. This is a man that 20 minutes earlier ago, I'd been speaking to him. We talked about his family. We talked about his life. We talked about where he lived and what he did on his time off. Right? And now he was a lifeless corpse, devoid of life. And I realized that in a snap, in an instant, these meat bodies, this life of ours can be just snuffed out. And there I was, I looked at this person that used to be my close friend, and I thought about the ramifications of this accident, like dropping the pebble in the pond, the ripples of this. Of course, his family, his children, his 2 kids would be directly affected, both profoundly affected and very saddened. But then there was his in-laws and the extended family and the community in which he was heavily involved would all feel the ripple effect of this man's loss. And then magnify that, I thought about the accidents in China, in mining incidents, where 30 to 40 people can lose their lives. What effect would that have on a village or a town? Imagine this. And I thought, what would it be like if we stopped causing harm to each other? Right? What would the world look like? Right? And I realized that if we've been through the procedural basis and we've been through the behavioral basis and we're still not stopping this harm, it has to go deeper than this. It has to go beyond behaviors. And so it was. The study of that, the source of human behaviors. And it goes like this. We perceive with our 5 senses, plus our 6th sense of intuition. We perceive the world around us. We see and hear and smell all of these delights that this extraordinary planet gives to us and the people upon it, right? And our perceptions of what we see and hear. And as we perceive, we form a perspective. This is how I see things. This is my point of view. This is my perspective on this or that person, or this or that situation, or circumstance, or place. And as we reinforce this perspective, it becomes a belief. I personally believe that Bali is a really good place to live. That's why we live here. That was formed from perceiving what I perceived around us, forming a perspective, and now a belief. And I believe that to be true, and my behaviors emanate from that. So whatever we believe is the source of our behaviors. So behavior science has to go deeper and have a look at what people believe in. What I'm proposing now is that we believe, most of us believe, it's okay if somebody gets hurt. Okay, it's not me. It's okay if we take a little bit of the environment and degrade it. It's okay if these equipment gets a little bit abused. Anybody rented a motor car lately? How did you treat it? Did you treat it with dignity and respect as you'd treat your own motor car? Question. Right? So we have this idea that it's okay to cause a bit of harm. And we become numb by seeing all of our CNN and the BBC and all the news reports about all the tragedies around the world. We become numb to this. And we just expect it to happen. Turn on the news. There's another drama going somewhere. So we have to change that. This lady is Jill Bolte Taylor. She was my first introduction to TED. And on her website and in her books and on her talk, she talks about the source of the egoic mind, the place where the ego lives. And she talks about how the ego causes us to be separate from each other, separate from our true nature, separate from each other, separate from the equipment and material we use, separate from Mother Earth. Right? So the ego is all about fear, superiority, and separateness, with all its subsets of judgment, envy, greed, jealousy, all of these other aspects of the ego. And the irony is, according to Jill Bolte Taylor, there is a peanut bunch of cells in the left hemisphere through which the consciousness of we experience separateness. The egoic mind is situated in a peanut bunch of cells in the left hemisphere. Think about this. That we have this huge brain, we have all this life ahead of us, and we're being dictated by a peanut bunch of cells in the left hemisphere. This we need to change. This we need to change. We need to move from here to here, the hero's journey, or to be politically correct, the hero and heroine's journey. So cause no harm. It's a cultural change process, but it's also a consciousness-raising process. It takes us from egocentricity to global centricity and beyond. It takes us away from I, me, mine to thinking on a global perspective. It focuses initially, there has to be something in it for us. Otherwise, we won't take it on. We won't be interested. There has to be some net tangible benefits to us. Otherwise, we're not interested. But as we grow our consciousness, as we become more aware, then we become thinking about, how can I be of service to others? How can I spread this awareness, this consciousness, this responsibility, which must go hand in hand with consciousness? How can I be more responsible? So what can I do to serve? What can I do to make a difference? What can I do to change? We need to change ourselves mentally. You know, we tell ourselves extraordinary stories. I'm not old enough, I'm not young enough, I'm not pretty enough, I don't have enough education, I had a terrible background, I had a wonderful background. we tell ourselves these stories, right? And we believe them. We actually believe them. Right? And we beat ourselves up with this mental chatter that goes around in our head. Our self-esteem is beaten up by ourselves, not by anybody else. We give away our power. So we need to stop causing harm mentally to ourselves. And emotionally, we have the emotions that arise up. And as they do, we run away from them. We dive into work. We dive into chemicals. We dive into food. We dive anywhere except those painful emotions. And within those painful emotions is great wisdom and great joy if we were prepared to turn and face them. We beat ourselves up physically. We overexert ourselves. We underexert ourselves. We become chemically dependent. We have a poor diet. All of these things that we can do physically. We can start causing no harm to ourselves across this spectrum. And from there we can look at cause no harm to others. Look around our world today. It's filled with terrorism, hate, and fear. Religious conflict, poverty, greed, and wars. This is causing harm to others. And to some degree, there are people that believe it's quite acceptable to do that. I don't subscribe to that. I think it's unacceptable to do that. And the equipment and material and assets that we have, whether they're our assets or somebody else, if we decide that we're not going to cause harm to that, we will deeply respect it and treat it as if it was our own in a good, fashionable way. And the immediate environment in which we work and live, we foul our immediate environment. Isn't it extraordinary? Why would we do that? Why would we do this to our beautiful environment? Why would we pollute it? Why would we pollute the airs and the water and the soil and make it unarable? It doesn't make sense, and yet we do it. When we believe that it's unacceptable to do this, then we will cause no harm. And the planet as a whole, we actually rely on this beautiful planet, our mother, for everything that we come across in our lives. Look around this room. Everything has come from Mother Earth. Look at the condition of our planet. It's been created by causing harm. And we have done it. We can't blame everybody else. We've either done it by tacit consent or we've done it by silence. Silence is also consent. So we have to change our outlook and see the global picture. And these little guys, these are my two daughters. They're 2 years old last week. Filled with innocence, filled with love, filled with curiosity, filled with joy. And I have to ask myself, in what condition are we going to leave this planet for these kids? And I go beyond my own children to what these other kids around here, in what condition are we going to leave this planet? Does this work? The corporate spirituality that I teach in Singapore and with my clients moves from the head to the heart. It's called putting the soul back into corporations. Right? Does it work? We applied this cultural change process. It took about 18 months to 2 years to do a cultural change. And as a result of this, my client was awarded the Forbes Asia Best Under $1 Billion Company and the Best Internationalizing Company in Singapore. So we know it works. We know it works. What did we do? We made the core value of this company, the core value, to cause no harm. From the board of directors all the way down to the people that are working on the tools, doing the typing, making the tea and coffee. Everybody has this culture. Firstly, will cause no harm. Then we applied the new paradigm for business. Your people, our planet, and profits. Keeping those three balls up in the air. It's not just profits at any cost, which it used to be. It's not our people are our greatest asset. And we know it's not being said with any great intention. It's your people, our planet, and profits. Then we changed the fragmented culture to one of connectedness. When you know that somebody else is not going to cause you harm, there's an incredible connectedness that happens. There's an incredible relationship that develops and builds. You're not looking over your shoulder to see who's coming to stab you in the back. We all know in corporations that the rumor mill is one of the most degrading things of any company. Right? It also happens in communities. It happens in families. So this applies to everybody. Right? And then we did continuous reminders of cause no harm through merchandise, through letters, through promotions, through campaigns. We made everybody know that it wasn't acceptable to cause harm, and we positively reinforced this all of the time. So what would our world look like if we ceased to cause harm? We'd lead richer, healthier, more purposeful lives. We would live in unity and respect each other. When we cause no harm to other people, we would respect them. We would honor them for their contribution. We would no longer feel separate, but we would feel that we're part of one human family. Just one human family here, living and experiencing life to its fullest. We would consider that it's absolutely unacceptable to plunder the environment, to take from it the sources and resources that are so desperately needed for the survival of the planet, not just us. But if we do take something, we would make sure we would put it back. We would bring a balance to this beautiful planet. We would be in harmony with it. We would be in sync. We would be in vibrational alignment with the planet. And it would help us on our journey. And the planet as a whole, right? We would find ways of finding sustainable ways of living. We would find renewable energies. We would find ways of reducing our carbon footprint. We would find ways of living in harmony with this planet. So, with future generations, we would leave a legacy for them where they could live in peace and in harmony. They could strive to be the best they could be. Their ideas could be freely spread around the place. And they would live deeply within their hearts and spread love that comes from the heart. And I thought that was an idea worth spreading. Thank you.